Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. A long-needed episode that has not happened in the entire years of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. My name is Jordan, with a silent PH in the middle, and I'm joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. But the man of the hour, the lore master himself, who I would argue, you know more than any of the other D&D lore YouTubers, I think. Like, maybe we all feel that way.
It's all a sham.
Maybe we all feel that way, but AJ Pickett from the Mighty Glue Stick has joined us today, and we're going to talk about, I guess, a whole bunch of things. We're going to just talk about lore and D&D, just general awesome stuff, but we're very excited to have you. Thanks for coming on.
I have a feeling it's going to get very general and vague, and then it's going to get very specific about lore very quickly.
Yeah. Pick one thing that nobody knows.
Don't want to. I always it cracks. Well, I'm going to tell this. This is a dumb story, but my friends are always trying to trump me on like lore and stuff, and they're doing it now to the point of there was an episode of the Colbert Report or something with so Stephen Colbert's show. I forget whatever he's doing, and Ryan Reynolds was on it and was like, "I hear you're a big Tolkien fan, so my mom has like a trivia question for you." Like, and he does this whole like in The Hobbit on this all happens, and Stephen Colbert's like, yeah, and he's like, what page is that on? And like that was, like, oh my gosh, you got to stump him. So they're doing that now. Like, what page is that, Jordan? What book? I'm like, I have no idea. I read it on Wikipedia.
Don't play that game with Mr. X. He will beat you.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Too funny. Well,
he rolled out last time we had a collab that was for like community event that we ran ourselves last year. Mr. X pulled out some lore that just I did not know.
No, yeah, which you can tell. I after that experience, we had a D&D lore roundtable where we were just talking about having lore channels, and Mr. X was he was so casual, but like. His presentation, he gets so excited about it, and he was talking to us about drakes or something, and they were like injecting poison into each other's mouths, and we were like, where if you watch the video, which maybe I should find it and link it, like we're all just like, where did this come from? Like, this is hilarious. But yeah, it's good times.
It's like, okay, calm down, fella.
Yeah. Well, Mr. AJ, what got you into D&D? You're obviously a big fan. I can see a bunch of stuff on your shelves behind you, but how long have you been playing? What got you into it?
Origin story.
Origin story. My D&D testimony. So it all boils down to Stephen Jackson's Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Oh yeah.
Wizard Under Firetop Mountain and Death Jungle and various other punchy titles, and that led me to the World of Titan and the expanded lore of that book, and then it was like Lone Wolf and various other, and I sort of consumed anything, and then I saw this red box on a supermarket shelf. I was with my grandmother. It was $11 New Zealand money, which was expensive back then, and she was a bit skeptical about it, but I begged her to buy that for me, and that was it. Once I cracked open those pages of basic, and you could play a little mini campaign by yourself.
The dice made of candle wax almost.
Yeah. We literally did put the numbers in on the dice with a bit of crayon. That was included.
The lowest amount of money made for any box set ever, but has probably had the most impact on anybody anywhere.
Yeah. And to this day, those map symbols are the map symbols that I use when I'm ever drawing, dungeons and things like that.
That's awesome.
So the red box, I'm a red box set baby. That's 1980s. With the I think it's a Moldave cover. I'm not entirely sure. Oh no, that was.
So you got to read it, but how'd you get to play it? Did you have to find a way that you could run it for somebody else, or did you find somebody else that could run it for you?
That's always the more interesting part of the story, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this I basically just hung out and read those and did my own little thing. And then I went to school one day, and this new guy in school who seemed kind of English and exotic. He had a expert set. I think it was just like one book of the expert set that he was getting rid of. And I was like, well, I've got the basic set, so it makes sense that I would have, I would collect these. And then I was like, well, are you into it? Because we could play it. And he's like, okay. So, and then things are a blur. And then next thing you know, we're in a sweaty room with 4 or 5 teenage guys playing, listening to Living Colour and Melissa Etheridge, and just reading the classic Joker versus Batman graphic novels, and it's all
nice.
Yeah, the early 90s.
Quintessential.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sounds great though.
So that was us. And the interesting thing is we had lots of girls who I'm sure would play D&D now, but they just had no interest in it back then whatsoever. And I don't know if it even ever occurred to us to ask. But yeah, I really wish we had, because that would have been interesting. Mind you, it also would have been mayhem.
Well, yeah, those first games, if you try to even, mine were a blur, but even thinking back as an 8 to 10-year-old, it was just madness and nonsense of what we were doing. I don't even think we were playing the rules right, but we were having fun. We were having a blast, rolling dice, figuring out how to do character stuff, and it was just awesome.
For sure. I've got a very memorable incident where the DM didn't really understand the summoning rules of or the gating rules of demons, and so we ended up fighting an endless string of demons that just kept gating in more and more of them, and that was hairy.
It's awesome.
I always thought that was funny that demons can summon more of themselves. Like there was some Forgotten Realms book I was reading, I think it was War of the Spider Queen, where they summoned a few demons that were running around the city of spiders, and then those demons were like, oh, I can do this too, and they're like summoning more demons. You're like, is there an end to this? Like, the abyss is infinite, isn't it? Like, what's going on?
It's like, hordes of the abyss, right.
Yeah, that makes sense now.
That's why you don't deal with demons, because they make more demons.
So you're playing basic and you're hanging out and things like that. Why? And for those of you who don't know, AJ has a not a Forgotten Realms, just a D&D lore channel, but you have done a lot of Forgotten Realms content just because there's a lot of Forgotten Realms out there. But have you done Greyhawk stuff? Have you always been into the Forgotten Realms, or is it just all like what's your speciality, I guess? Like, what do you...
Well, let's see. We played a lot of different role-playing games. All of us had separate, different sort of our babies that we brought along to the D&D group. So D&D was always the staple, and so every 2 games that we played, one of them would be an AD&D game. So we played 2nd edition D&D pretty quickly. And for me, Palladium was the game that I sort of brought with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Ninjas and Super Spies, and Beyond the Supernatural was really good. So that was like our tippy-toe into Cthulhu-esque horror mysteries, but there was also superheroes, plus there was super gadgets and cybernetics and things like that. So we played Rifts before there was Rifts, and then Rifts came along and we sort of gravitated towards playing that, but superheroes was always a focus of that as well. So we and then Phase World came along, and that was our baby. Phase World was awesome. Even up till we were playing Zoom, like back in the early days of Google Hangouts, that we used to play big games of Heroes Unlimited with this Larkosian Galaxy campaign setting that I had. So it was homebrew, but it was a sort of Phase World type game. So we do a lot of homebrew, is what I'm saying. So Forgotten Realms didn't really pop up until I started researching the lore for YouTube, essentially. And that came about by me crafting monsters on my channel, because I started out as a crafting channel. That's why the channel's called The Mighty Glue Stick. And then, so I crack out artwork every now and then and show people that I can draw and sculpt and stuff. They're like... these days, we had no idea. That's what I started doing. The other day I did a video where there was just no artwork of these wingless wonders around, so I had to draw one while I was talking about it on the chat. And that's actually a throwback to, I was sculpting a roper and talking about the roper, and that's when I got into reading about the Forgotten Realms, and it's like, wow, there is so much material here. I could make videos about this forever.
No, that's awesome. So it kind of started with like monsters, I guess. I feel bad that I don't know this, but how old is your channel? Like, when did you start it?
It's not that much older than yours.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
4
sure.
years or so.
Yeah.
Because I specifically went looking for Forgotten Realms content, and I was like, I don't find a lot. So I was like, I should make this. If I want to find it, then I should find it, or I should make it, so that if you're other people are probably looking for the same thing you are, Jordan, kind of a thing. And then I want to say it was like a couple months later, there was you, and there was Faerun History, and I think one more, and I'm like, where were you my whole life? I was like, where did these guys come from?
Yeah, we're just like a new breed of Candlekeep Sage that have sort of appeared on the.
And it was interesting. We all kind of had the same idea at the same time in a way, but it was fun.
And
we've always been really like friendly about it too. Like I think AJ and I, there's a couple times, we're always like, oh, we're like cousin channels or something and hang out.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the occasional fan will look for beef, and there is none to be found. There's none.
It actually kind of marks when, almost historically, when D&D starts to come back. Like people are still playing it and they're still having fun, but it was about 4 years ago where it starts to skyrocket again in popularity. And that probably is what's bringing everybody searching, not finding exactly what they're looking for, and then going, you know what, maybe I'll just do this, or I'll put it out there and then somebody will have it. And then all of a sudden, in these last 4 years, the resurrection of role-playing games in general and the enthusiasm behind it has been extraordinary. You wouldn't have seen it 10 years ago. It was out there, but it wasn't the popularity it's at right now. It's mainstream. Everybody talks about it. You can find it anywhere these days. There's channels galore. There's live plays and lore videos and crafting videos like you're talking. There's so many terrain building videos out there now that it's crazy. It's just awesome for the hobby to be so full, and with so many of you creators that are out there. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah. The crafting channels are amazing, and have really shown how this has taken off on YouTube as well. And like even 3 or 4 years ago, you would not have dreamed that somebody running a YouTube channel could do it as a full-time job.
Yeah, painting some minis, and that's what that they're going to make it on that. Nowadays, it's
never occurred to me that you could do this.
Even Black Magic Craft,
50,000.
He always cracks me up, or I mean, not cracks me up, but like he just does really great videos. And I don't even terrain. I barely paint minis. But I love watching his stuff because he's always like, oh yeah, like I think we could do this. And what if I saw this arm off? And you're like, what? And so it's really cool stuff.
It's like, oh, I could do that with some foam core. Where can I get foam core? How expensive is it in New Zealand?
No.
Okay, not that material, something else.
So
innovation in that hobby is great too. Everybody's coming up with new things all the time.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, this is a big question, but like, what is your favorite campaign setting for D&D then? Because you cover so much, and you cover a bunch of monster lore, and monsters can be different in different campaign settings. So like, is there, I don't know, do you have a, if I could run a game right now kind of a thing, I want to run it in this setting?
Well, that's tricky because I would run anything that you chose to run. I'm very flexible when it comes to, I'll give it a go. I'll throw my hat in. Having played a wide variety of different RPG systems, I'm pretty easy on systems and stuff as well. There's some I prefer and some I don't like. I don't really like dice pool games. I like my initiative rolls, things like that.
Yeah, Shadowrun.
Oh yeah, I haven't actually played Shadowrun, believe it or not. But Call of Cthulhu has got that sort of, that's cool. I'm very curious by nature, and I like the idea of playing a sage who's delving into things a little bit too deeply, and it's all going to end in madness, but you can't help but go down that path anyway. And the idea of fighting a monster and having no idea what it is, and your bullets don't work and you run away screaming is also fantastic. That's something I really like about Call of Cthulhu. But Forgotten Realms is my favorite one because it's just soaked into my bones now, and I know it very well. And there's all these places that I want to go and explore as a dungeon master and make them my own in the Forgotten Realms. And that the idea of that, I love the setting, and it's going to flow through in the games that I play. And if I put on a really good Hellrua for somebody, that will be Hellrua in their mind from then on. I like that idea.
Do you ever go back in time in the Forgotten Realms, or like something that is, this event happened, but I really like how like Eltegard was displayed at this point in time. So my Eltegard for my Forgotten Realms game is going to be here. Like, do you switch it up, or do you try to keep it a current timeline? Or
it's funny how somebody asks you a question and something just cements in your mind suddenly. My friend Ian runs a lot of time jumping, prophecy driven games.
Oh,
And
that's
he does it.
cool.
Yeah, he does it really well. So I just don't do it.
Because
That's his shtick. Yeah. Mine are more about going on the adventuring journey and not knowing where it's going to end up. So there's a lot of just sandboxing and just following leads. So I'm very much in favor of anybody that the players talk to are going to have some sort of an adventure lead. It might just be my kitten has grown a tentacle. What's going on with that? Or it could be the town well has dried up and we're all going out of business. Something needs to be done, and you're it.
I wish that Wizards of the Coast would make the Forgotten Realms a sandbox game, rather than having the adventure modules are fun that they're creating for 5th edition. But before the show started, we were just talking about Storm King's Thunder, and that's one of my favorites as well, because there's a whole section that you just are like, if I go north, what do I find? It's like, you find this. And a creative DM can be like, you find this, and then the players latch on to one thing about it, and then you turn that into a campaign. And one of my favorite things about the Realms is that you could do that everywhere. Like, every hex could have 8 different plot hooks to like pull you into something, and then you're and if you like to just explore like I do, and it sounds like you do as well, then it's just fun to go around. But we haven't seen that yet, really, and I don't know, have we ever seen that? Like,
well, the potential of the Forgotten Realms is something like this. If you and I were running Wizards of the Coast right now, Jordan, let's have a
please. I vote for this.
If we were. Imagine a Wikipedia that you could go to where every single hex is a wiki in and of itself.
Yeah.
And people have done surveys, they've gone through all the lore and stuff, and they've found out what the official stuff is. That's sort of marked in red. There's a dragon over on this hill here. This is how far on the map their regional effect goes out to. This is what happens when regional effects overlap in this particular area. You can throw these elements, templates into your game, and it's just driven by community interest and grows and grows and grows and grows. So wherever you go on that wiki map is like you're going down the rabbit hole of everybody's special interest in that particular place, and that passion and research flows through it. When you're trying to present something like the Forgotten Realms to the public, you've got this double-edged sword of it's got incredible richness of lore, 40 years of literary history. Nothing else even comes close to that. So it's this incredible resource. But how do you introduce that to new players and not make them feel overwhelmed by the stuff that they feel compelled they must know? So everybody these days, when you ask them a question, goes, okay, Google, what is the longest river in Africa? I don't know. And I think we have got the tools now where we can do that for the Forgotten Realms. Like, you don't have to know stuff. Other people know it for you. And here's a resource that provides that information for you in a way that you can use right now. So you shouldn't have to prepare everything for your campaign. You should be able to just sort of hex crawl your way across the Forgotten Realms, and it's just all there for you.
Yeah.
The
No,
wiki
that would
pages
be
are really
ideal
great.
and fun. And the amount of inspiration I feel like a good dungeon master would get from that, because you also were talking about like making the realms your own. And I think that's another huge important thing is some people do get caught up in, I don't know, are they like, I have to go check this book again to see if they are right-handed. And part of it is like, no, in your game, they're left-handed, or I don't know, in your game, all elves are purple. I don't know. Like, so it's just kind of, that's fun.
Yeah, it's like, take it from me and Jordan, people who research the lore. You think we would have an invested interest in the lore being, followed
Accurate
by everybody.
Something,
No. It's as soon as it hits your game, your table, it's your own. The realms is your own, and nobody is going to tell you how to run it. It's your baby. You can run it.
It does make sense too that the lore guys pick the biggest, most in-depth campaign that we can find information about as their one that they love to sink their teeth into and find out all those little things. Like, you're not going to pick the one that had one book back in 94 and only had one book on the campaign and that's it. Lore people I want in-depth. I want dragon articles. I want magazines. I want outside creators, third-party creators contributing. I want book series. I want everything I can get my hands on to tell me about this cool Forgotten Realm place.
However much I think I know about a monster, or however deep I've gone and referenced, there's always somebody in the comment section who mentions something that I have missed.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
And
that is the curse of D&D lore channels, I think, because there's so much information, and then people will say, well, I think you're wrong about this,
Jordan.
and I'm like, you're probably right. And so
the Displacer Beast has 6 eyes, but you continue.
Yeah.
Whatever.
My favorite is I haven't finished the video yet, but, and I'm like, just finish the video. Like, I might have corrected myself. I don't know. So it's too funny.
Yeah. I always thank people who correct me on lore stuff, because I'm here to learn. That's my passion for making videos is learning this stuff. So I'm not going to be offended if somebody points out something I don't know. That's why I'm here. So.
Just list your references, people, so that we can learn and go back and learn just like you did. Where'd you see that? Because I want to go back and read it too.
Because we can find it. We can find it.
Yeah.
Too funny.
If I research for a living, I can find it.
We were talking about other RPGs too before we started, like Numenera and stuff. What are some of your other favorite RPGs, and are they lore centric, or are they just are there certain mechanics that you like in RPGs?
I like Star Wars as a setting, as a game to sandbox in, and I love the lore of all the different alien species, and I like the real gritty feel of the technology of Star Wars, and also the fact that they don't really go into huge depth on exactly how the technology works. They just say it's a blaster, it's a hyperdrive, And space other than that, you're a space cowboy who is contending with space wizards every now and then. So and let's see.
It's funny. My dungeon master Nathan loves Star Wars, and I always feel like he to Star Wars is me to like the Forgotten Realms and stuff, because I have all of this knowledge that I've studied, and he's just like, well, the Kyber crystals of this planet, and so he was going to run he did run a Star Wars game, and I was so excited, but I couldn't join because of conflict issues. But it was one of those things where I'm like, I just love playing in a game where the dungeon master is super passionate about it. Like I could play in, I don't know, we're all janitors working at a school, and that's the RPG. But like, if the guy is super excited about running this game, then I'm like, I'm in. Like, that's awesome. So, but no, Star Wars is great. That's fun.
Yeah. And of course, Warhammer 40K is another passion of mine. One of the things on my channel is every now and then when somebody replies first on the comments, I'll reply with a Warhammer 40K quote.
Oh.
And there's so many good ones.
A weird little thing to do. But yeah, I've played Rogue Trader and Inquisition, and I want to play the one where you're playing Imperial Guard troops, but I've also got the Death Watch on the shelf here behind me. There's also so many different alternate settings from third-party publishers for Dungeons and Dragons as well they're almost like, well, what do you play? It's like, well, I play Midgard, or Dragon Age. So here's the Death Watch book.
I love the art. It's so fun.
See that pretty well. Does it look dark, deadly, and moody? Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite third-party publishers for D&D then? I guess even mechanics or setting-wise or anything. Yeah. Have you covered Midgard? Have you covered Midgard on your channel at all or anything? I haven't either. That is another can of worms that I've wanted to, but like, it's so big and cool. But yeah.
Yeah, you've got, like, for instance, the Old Margrave. Tales of the Old Margrave is you're in a forest. The forest is an entity. You gain renown with the forest very slowly, and it's quite difficult. So you're kind of like, you start off on the forest's like naughty list, and then the things you do to be heroic and campaign and stuff for the forest gives you these extra additional unlocking regional powers. And I love that. That's so the idea that 5th edition was going for, I think. It's like, what if the heroes get so powerful that they start to have regional effects? They start to have lair effects. They become boss monsters.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. They're
who's made a
superheroes
resource
now.
for that? Matt Colville with his heroes and
Yep.
strongholds, like his strongholds and stuff, strongholds and followers. That ties into that whole idea, and that's the idea that in Dungeons and Dragons back in the day, you would start out with your bunch of 14 expendable heroes, and then eventually one or two of those would survive, and they would go on to becoming a person who starts attracting other adventurers as retainers, and then that hero would retire and become a lord and build a castle and things like that. So half of your campaign was your second generation of characters is off doing their adventures, and you're also dealing with your campaign and the politics of that region. So it got really involved, and you got to explore every aspect of that campaign world, not just adventuring around and spending money, but also being somebody who has to provide for the civilization and expand the borders and hire adventurers and do all that sort of stuff. And I'd like to see more of that in Dungeons and Dragons, and I think we're getting more of that from third-party publishers right now than we are from D&D proper. But
yeah, MCDM.
The Coast has just turned a new signpost where or marker post where they're now have been in charge of Dungeons and Dragons longer than TSR was.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Things could change. Things have changed, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
And they still embrace the OGL enough that they haven't tried to go back and rip it back out of people's hands. They haven't tried to tear away the community involvement. Although they probably could do more. Anybody could argue that it could be even better, but at least it's there. They're not like the type that used to be, it's our IP, you're not allowed to touch it, we'll sue the hell out of you if you do anything with it type of content creator, whereas there's an opening for you to do something. So I think that's what makes the third party publishers thrive, is because there's a company that's willing to tolerate them. If you can at least argue they tolerate them, if not support them in some ways. And I think the new generation of Wizards of the Coast is more supportive of the outside community than, say, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
The DMsGuild one bookshelf, that is something that a resource that we never had back in the day. So these days, getting yourself self-published is so much easier these days than it was. It's still a monumentous task to put out a book, one that does well on one bookshelf. But yeah, the idea that you can from scratch in your living room sort of thing is quite amazing these days. And just the modern D&D community, and it is more of a community now of integrated communicating people who follow the same sort of news sources than it ever has been, and thanks to Twitter and Facebook and things like that, we've got all these avenues to talk with each other that we didn't have before. Back in the 80s, it was just like message boards, if that. And we were in a sort of a dark era coming out of 3.5 edition. 4th edition shook things up and spawned Pathfinder and that sort of schism in the community. But it made us aware that there was a D&D community, and there was fundamental ideas about what role-playing games should be, and it divides and defines us. And then 5th edition comes along, and it's more of a community-driven thing, and it's invited everybody in to share with the resources that we all have. So the idea now is Dungeons and Dragons is a community made up of a patchwork of people who have very focused ideas of what a Dungeons and Dragons game should be. And I think 5th edition, and as we head into a possible 6th edition, which may actually just be a development of 5th edition and not a new, like new books, new core thing, but an alteration of the game where we start getting a rules cyclopedia and things like that, which brings all the new stuff from Unearthed Arcana into these scattered rules magazines that we have at the moment. And I see it evolving into a very community-focused thing, which treats the different spheres that we play the game as different entities. So we've got Zoom games, we've got conference convention games, we've got community outreach games where we play for people with special needs and things like that, which is something that my friend Ian is doing. He's got an outreach program where they take kids with autism and play D&D with them all day. They love it. And different avenues like that, which require a different look at the game. Like a game that you're playing with your middle-aged friends around a table is quite different from a game that you're playing at an open convention where kids are wandering past, you know. So Dungeons and Dragons is very different for different people. So our community is this patchwork, as I said.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's a huge community, really. It's a gigantic community at these times, what I think is great. Yeah, I did a Kickstarter for, I think it's called Critical Core, and it's looking at a way to create accessibility role-playing games and using it so that it's, colorblind, it works out. Those that are visually or hearing impaired, it has materials for them. And it has this idea of creating things that are much easier for those that might be on the spectrum also to be able to play, because it can be used as a tool. And there's a lot of people that are starting to use it more as a tool. I have our niece she majored in psychology and kid psychology. And she talks about how one of the things they've even mentioned now, it's no longer anathema to mention it, is that they can use a Dungeons and Dragons game to reach out to people who you might not have been able to touch or reach before. And it's amazing to see that because before 80s, we're talking about people were raising pitchforks because we're worshiping demons, and it's ruining the youth of our culture, and we can't have this thing. It needs to be shut down right now.
I was there.
Yeah. So it's amazing what's the turnaround. That is.
We had that similar thing in New Zealand as well. We went through our satanic panic. Not to the same extent in the hysteria, but yeah, we witnessed all of the media that was coming from, the States. And
do you feel like being in New Zealand, did you feel you were behind the curve of where the Dungeons and Dragons community and ebb and flow was, or was it actually still getting to New Zealand being a smaller area, maybe getting less commercial product from certain places? How did you feel into that? Were you always just scrabbling just to get anything, or was it actually still pushed out into the stores enough that it wasn't too bad?
Yeah, back in the day, we had a limited supplier. So the actual supply of products was very limited, and it was really much the shops would do an order run, and they had to get a lot of different products straight away. So you had a chunk of stuff from this time period, and you had a chunk of stuff from this time period, and everything in between is just gone. Never reached the shores. These days, and of course that influenced the way that we played. So like I mentioned, each of us had our pet game that we played because we could afford to buy one rule book. And for me, it was like Heroes Unlimited is mine, and you're playing Robotech. Well, that's sort of the same thing. And this is Battletech. It's like that? No, it's terrible. And so we played a lot of Traveller, and Traveller is one of the games that we played almost as much as we played Dungeons and Dragons back in the day, because we homebrewed so much of it. I don't think we ever played a legit. Oh yeah, we did. We tried to investigate a Droin ruin. Long story. Anyway,
or even the influence of the American product versus the European product, because a lot of people don't know that there's a strong European TTRPG thing going in the 80s and 90s that is really separate from Dungeons and Dragons. They have their own kind of big games that are big in, Sweden and Norway and Germany and all these places that weren't necessarily D&D. So was New Zealand more influenced by the American products coming in, or were they more influenced by the European products that were coming in?
Very much influenced by American products. Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny you should mention that. Yeah, because we could have gone like Brazil. Brazil is Vampire the Masquerade is the main game that they play over there. I think over in Japan they play a different RPG to Dungeons and Dragons. So it's quite interesting that you would walk into a different gaming culture where Dungeons and Dragons is not the lingua franca that everybody speaks. It's Magic the Gathering or something else.
Yeah, like Rollmaster was European, was big for them. There was some of the other games I was trying to remember. Free Legion is now bringing a lot of those things, that more European style of game, and we're seeing more of it here now, although we're swamped in our own, all the different games that are going on. But it was interesting. Well, even with now, and this will help segue, I think, a little bit, is Kickstarter has allowed the people to create new systems, new campaigns to explode even beyond what you could do with Dragon Magazine or Dungeon Magazine, or even like you're saying, DMsGuild is starting to push. But it was nothing like the effect of Kickstarters coming out and creators saying, here's my new system, here's my new game for this system, here's these things, and people can crowdfund it. And I mean, I know we're moving into that, and you've had a little experience here now with doing a Kickstarter and trying to dump into that. So talk a little bit about
I'm having the experience of Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So I just happen to have some products sitting next to me here.
All right.
That I prepared.
Interesting.
So here's this massive big bag here, big enough for your laptop and all your D&D books. Yeah. Big Pockets, the name for Big Pockets came from Ant-Man and Giant Man from Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
In the later part of his career, joined me for a trip down to comic obscurity. I was an Avengers fan of the comics and the West Coast Avengers and East Coast Avengers.
Moon Knight.
Yeah. Eventually, Hank Pym got so saturated with Pym particles that he could no longer safely become Giant Man or Ant-Man because it would kill him. But he was saturated with these particles that allowed him to touch something and shrink or enlarge it. And so he wore this jumpsuit with all these pockets on it full of like ambulances and rocket-propelled machine guns.
I did not know this. This is hilarious.
Yeah, and became this character called Big Pockets, and hence.
Oh, that's
so
hilarious.
The idea that you reach into your pocket and pull out this silicon game mat that like literally, hang on, let me demonstrate for you. Here in my hand I have, hey, so this is a generic character sheet. And whenever you're playing a game online and stuff and you want to jot down some notes and not necessarily have to go into your smartphone or whatever, miss the action because you're going through all your tabs and roll 20 and how do I change my spell lists and things like that. This is a really easy to use, perfect wet dry erase surface for just jotting down character notes and things like that during the game. And it's well set up for 5th edition. It's blank for a reason. So this could be your equipment list. It could be a character illustration. This could be some stats that are changing temporarily because of spell effects and things like that. Mm-hmm. This could be your favorite attacks. This could be your whatever. And so when you're playing your game and the DM is suddenly reading off what loot and stuff you've got, you just grab your eraser, wet dry eraser, note it down. So that's what that's for. Then
that's like space age material you got there, like that.
I know.
Scrunch up. That didn't.
Yeah. So not only is this fantastic material non-toxic and environmentally friendly and doesn't cause like any sort of carbon problems when it's being manufactured because it's just this chemical process. It lasts forever. This is basically the same material that you use for cooking, so you can bake cookies on this. And I have actually tested out these products and made a pizza.
Yeah, I saw that on the Kickstarter. That's hilarious. Like,
yeah.
But it also sticks to tables, right? Like not in a glue sense, not in like a mighty glue sense, but like
it's not like Teflon going to go flying across your table.
Yeah.
It really makes a really good surface, and you can roll your metal dice and stuff on this, and it protects your wooden tables and things. So that's that. Then we've got this. This is a combat tracker. So
that's
again,
cool.
Let's say you're playing a Theatre of the Mind game on a Zoom call, and you need to point out to your DM that you're going to be moving from X square to X square. We've got a little grid down the bottom there where you can basically illustrate exactly what's going on. It could also be a hit locations table for your character or your mech or whatever you're playing with. We've got a round by round marker or your initiative order. So this could be on round 3 of the combat, the trolls show up.
Mm-hmm.
This is when the dam breaks and the room starts filling with water, etc., etc. This is when this person's spell effect ends. And of course your initiative order as well. And up the top is just some squares that you can use for tracking ammo or spell slots and things like that. Again, just really simple next to you at the table. You can pull it out all the time. Saves so much scrap paper, you have no idea. Next, the prize that everybody I think is interested in is the table mat.
This is so cool. I was like, I don't know why, and I shouldn't say this because I'm sure somebody's thought of it, but I don't know why anybody has never thought of this before.
It feels so good. It's like my safety blankie. So these, it looks much bigger than it's a A1 size. So if you've got a standard A1 international paper size, that's exactly how big this is. So you can compare this on your own table, on your devices, whatever. So these fantastic sheets are damn near indestructible. They're thicker than any other silicon gaming mats that you can get on the market. We've tested them out with permanent markers. So I've got a little video on my Kickstarter page where it shows me marking on the thing with some Crayola markers, and then I get some permanent markers, and I used a Bic Intensity and Bic Stevens Vivid. I thought those are the most internationally available. And just showed that you can use those like wet erase markers. Just wipe them off with a...
so you don't need rubbing alcohol to get them off afterwards or anything? Really?
Nope.
That's crazy.
Just because of the material?
It's
That's
crazy. Awesome. Space age material.
Yeah.
I did try it out with red permanent markers, and they do leave a little mark.
Red's hard on any mat, though, I think. Like, I threw away all my red markers. We're not going to use these.
So you don't want to go too crazy, but if you do make a mistake and use a permanent marker, it will work just like a dry erase pen. It's quite amazing. And yeah, flame proof. I haven't made a rudimentary slingshot, but I'm tempted.
You could. Yeah. You can make a Garrett out of it. Improvised weapons.
A makeshift hammock.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, we got a 1-inch grid for hex crawls on one side and a 1-inch square on the other side.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What made you think of this?
Right?
So
I saw a similar sort of product on the market, and I thought, okay, first of all, we need these things to be readily available, because I'm sick and tired of everybody playing with Chessex, and like I don't want to knock Chessex. They've been really great for a long time, and they're sort of an industry standard for like, oh, I've got a Chessex mat. But vinyl it's got limitations, and they do get scuffed up and they get marked, and people buy more and more of them. And vinyls are plastic, and it goes into the environment, and it's just not great. Laminated is okay, but again, it has problems with like creases and folding and not laying flat and stuff like that. Yeah. So I just wanted a superior product on the market that everybody could use, get the price point so that it was affordable for everybody, so they just have to spend some money once and have a mat which is going to last them for a lifetime, that they're going to be able to hand down to their kids. So ethical concerns, availability, and just I wanted these myself.
Yeah.
So
I think that's 90% of why I make things, is I'm just like, I want this. So that's really cool. But I threw the link in. It's also in the description. It's going to be in the podcast notes, and I threw it in chat here, but you should check it out. He's got a Kickstarter going right now to basically get these manufactured and going, correct? And then you can order them.
I've already spent the money on the molds and stuff like that, so the all of the products that I've shown you are ready to go into production right now. That's so cool. Essentially what my goal is the minimum order quantity at the factory determines how much that is. So the Kickstarter goal is very realistically exactly how much it costs to get 2,000 of these sheets printed and manufactured and sent out to people. Okay. So it's like that's a container that is filling up with the orders, sort of thing. It's not like I'm using the Kickstarter funds to create these products from scratch. They're ready to go. So that's kind of the difference there. I'm not lowballing a Kickstarter funding goal artificially, and then hoping I get enough orders to fill the thing, because that would be financial suicide for somebody to do, and kind of a dodgy process. But yeah, the Kickstarter goal is the reality of exactly how much needs to be ordered in order for it to get into everybody's hands. The shipping costs. The world is quite different now than it was a few years ago, and there's a lot of uncertainty in shipping. I mean, the Suez Canal thing, and there's a lot of stuff which is like inflation and stuff is going to be rolling down and hitting a lot of people very quickly. So I think the shipping costs are quite realistic.
Are they being shipped from New Zealand, or?
No, they're being shipped from the factory in China to save on all the handling and stuff. Right. And that's part of the process, as well as I wanted to reduce any possible loss of information, the more hands information goes through, the less secure it is. So I wanted it all sort of done from one place, and it's just cheaper that way. And less carbon footprint going on a container ship.
Yeah, and I love that. Just environmentally friendly is awesome. You must mostly play at the table, or I guess, I mean, Zoom calls and stuff, that's been pretty recent for RPGs. So you grew up playing, and then this is probably all coming from just a necessity of like playing with lots of other battle maps and paper that tears and things like that. Is this the mat to end all? Like, I'll never have to buy another one. Is that kind of an idea? Like,
okay. To be honest, I think that the technology that's going to lead us into the future is things like holographic glasses that we put on, and we're playing on a table surface. So these tilt system, which is coming out from they've just run a Kickstarter. Yeah, I think that like making a silicon mat out of that game surface that they have, that would be the end all gaming surface ever. Until we're actually fully immersed in a virtual environment where we're walking around like the Matrix.
No, we already are. I'm pretty sure.
Plug me in.
So.
Yeah,
we just don't know it.
Yeah.
Welcome to Conspiracy Theory Radio with Jordan.
If this is all a video game, I feel like I'm doing pretty well.
Oh, good job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if this is a video game, can I ask the developers to make it more D&D and less just kind of modern world, though? I'm done with modern. I'm ready for something crazy.
Yeah.
Give me Star Wars or D&D. Give me one of them.
Yeah. Oh, we might be getting another D&D movie at some point.
That is possible.
I'll believe it when I see it. You know?
There are actors cast for it. There's a script being passed around for sure.
I have my hopes up, that's for sure. Yeah, but if this is a video game, I feel like I'm an NPC who's got a last name, so that's pretty good. I've started out okay there.
That's gonna be my goal in life. It's just like no, I feel like I'm an NPC that has a last name or something.
Yeah,
I'll put it on my gravestone. He died how he lived, an NPC with a last name.
You know you've made it when you've got a health bar.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
You're not just one person. You're not a minion. That's too funny. And we'll obviously plug your Kickstarter again, but yeah, go check it out 100%. I'm curious, with Van Richten's guide coming out, did you play Ravenloft? Are you a big Ravenloft fan, and are you excited about that book?
No.
Sounds like a good story here.
No, I've never really, like I say, I've played Call of Cthulhu and various other horror-esque games, but I've never actually played a Ravenloft game.
Ooh.
And so it's that lack of first-hand experience of it that doesn't really give me that depth of excitement or passion for it. I do like it, and I acknowledge that everybody really enjoys it. I can see why, but yeah, I just haven't had the luxury.
I bounced off it myself quite a bit, but I know a lot of people just love it. I am excited that this one's talking about 30, more domains of dread, and the idea of fleshing those out maybe a little bit more than we've ever had them before. So I'm sure for the lore people, that's awesome when they're going to start fleshing out some stuff that's been kind of just single sentence stuff. But yeah, like I bounced off the whole Ravenloft thing, but I know there's a big community out there that loves it.
Part of it is like it's a horror version of the Feywild in a way. And let me explain that. Yeah,
I can see that. Now, I was like, wait a minute, that makes sense.
Yeah, because you've got these individual worlds which are tailored around the sort of the Fey Lord.
Yeah, the power entity of that area. And
yeah, so it's like they're building a shadow Feywild in a way. Like imagine if all of the different barriers between the domains of dread dropped and they suddenly interacted, and the dark powers who put it all together went play.
Yeah.
But you would have Feywild and you have Shadowfell at that point. Yeah, that's what
And I like the idea that the Shadowfell and the Feywild are much more nebulous and less defined. As parallel realities go. Like, for instance, I was talking to somebody and said, what if the Feywild wasn't a place? It was all of these different locations which are attuned to the Feywild. They become temporarily the Feywild. So when you're walking around the Feywild, you're walking from one location on the prime material plane to another location, thousands of miles separate, that just happens to have moonlight and all these nature forces creating this harmony that makes this homogenous fairy tale thing. So the Fey lords and ladies are actually walking around a dreamscape that's not really a place at all. It's just this mood.
Yeah, so I've been working on a. That's cool.
You were like fully immersed there, Jordan, for a second.
No, I've been working on this on a campaign setting of my own, because I've never made a campaign set of my own. So for the month of December last year, I worked on it, and I've been becoming obsessed with frequency and just vibrations. And so the way you were describing that, I was like, no, like this pond and lake because this dreamscape Feylord, will walk into it, the vibrational frequency of that area just shifts a little bit, and now it's part of the Feywild. Yeah. But it hasn't really left the prime material plane. But if you walk into there, you're now in the Feywild because you're becoming attuned to that frequency. And so I was like, no, that just kind of fits my world a lot more too. Like, I like that idea.
The other thing too is, and a lot of people ignore this, is that when you leave the Feywild, you forget that you were in the Feywild, what happened in the Feywild, like you were in a dream state. Yeah. And so when you wake up from your dream, you forget that it ever happened. If the Feywild is this blending of reality and this dream, and when the Feylords move through the Feywild, they're really moving through the prime material plane. How often do they move past a place in the real world and everybody forgets that they were there?
It's like, do you see the tree? Do you hear the tree fall in the woods if you're not there? Yeah. Does it really fall? Yeah, now you're metaphysical.
Yeah, so what if a village is sleeping and it becomes part of the Feywild suddenly, and there's fairies and stuff that are, playing around and prancing, and they just move on, and then everybody wakes up in the morning wondering why their shoelaces are tied in knots, and their house is clean suddenly. And
did either of you ever read the Sandman comic by Neil Gaiman?
Heard of it, have not read it.
Okay, yeah. There's in one of the earlier comics, and AJ, maybe you'll remember, there's a whole comic about a guy who is in a city and he's dreaming, but he doesn't know how he got into this city, and he's the only one there, and he's running around, and then it turns out that it's the city itself that's actually sleeping. And he realizes this, and he's so scared, and they're like, "Why are you so scared?" He's like, "What if it wakes up?" And I always, anyway, the way you were talking, I was just thinking that, that would be, it's just kind of cool. Like the city or a village, an entity like that could be sleeping, but it's not really a thing, or I don't know, but I love stuff like that.
I love the idea of you moving through the Feywild, and every now and then you look off in the distance and you see some recognizable landmark of the real world, but that should be hundreds of miles from where you are.
Yeah.
And this idea that as you walk through the Feywild, you're walking this green path and stepping from world to world.
Yeah.
And don't even realize it. So you could end up anywhere when you come back out of it. Yeah.
That's super fun. I want there to be I want them to make, this is what I want Wizards of the Coast to make. And we've talked about it before, but I want a Feywild Shadowfell book with stuff like this. And so to keep it, abstract, but also to give you, I don't know, like an Oberon and a Titania and stuff to actually have the Lord and Ladies of the Feywild, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Kobold Press is giving us a pretty good...
Kobold has done an excellent job, yeah.
Yeah, they've got some great Feylords and stuff in there, and they've got a lot of options for you to use in your campaign.
Those Toma Beasts, those are like some of the best books, I think. I'm not putting anything bad about monster manuals and Volo's Guide and all that other stuff, but like I find myself flipping through Creature Codex and Toma Beasts 1 and 2 a lot more. Like I just love those.
It feels like those are our Fiend folios.
I guess, yeah, in a way, you're right. Like that has really changed the game for me, I guess, when I'm playing through D&D. I love it.
I've got some more recent ones from different publishers, and as soon as it goes onto my bookshelf, it disappears. Here it is. Here's a RPG which you're talking about. What different games do I play? Here's GURPS Discworld.
Yeah,
Discworld.
That's fun.
Love it.
Yeah, fantastic. So this is the Total Party Kill Bestiary Volume 1. Which was, this is from 2C Gaming. And I love the layout of this book, where it's got, I just happened to open it onto Demon Seeds. It didn't fall open there, folks, I swear. So it's got plot hooks, it's got treasure available, it's got a few of the different monsters in that category. It's got lore, it's got tactics, and it's got some in-world character notes. And it's got ecology and this really interesting art style, which is like, how would you describe this? Pencil anime. And it's got ecology and stuff.
Love it. Yeah, 2C Gaming, they're making they're producing the Venture Maidens campaign setting book, I think, that's coming out soon. And I actually haven't checked out a lot of their stuff, but since I found out that Celeste was working for them, I was like, I should look at your catalog. They've got quite a bit of interesting stuff.
They also did Grant Ellis's Grim World. He was doing a fairy tale world for 5e also that there was Kickstarter backed it. My book should be coming pretty soon, but 2C Gaming has really done some cool stuff reaching out to creators and building cool 5e stuff that's out there. So There's a plethora of information for anybody that's getting into the thing. What about your first? We never asked about the first time you dungeon mastered your own game. The first time you ran it. What was the experience there? What was the prep for it? Did you use a module? Did you use your own homebrew? Did you freak out? Were you fine? What was that experience?
It must have been very like homogenous and just sort of, I don't really have a defined memory of the first time I ran a game, unfortunately. It was just such a long time ago. Yeah. But I do remember that we did a lot of homebrew, and things where teenage boy games are violent, and they usually end abruptly, and we just move on. Like making new characters and stuff. Like back in the day, making new characters was a hobby. So losing characters was like, throw it into the retired pile. And you would go back years later and go, oh, look, Super Bunny. The guy with the superpowers and all the gadgets were designed around like carrots. So this is a carrot bazooka, and all the carrot bazooka ammunition did different things. That was the focus of it. What happened to Super Bunny and the story and stuff was just secondary to making it.
Yeah.
So
do you think it was D&D was the first game you ran, or do you think it was a different system?
No, I think Palladium was the first system that I actually ran, because other people. Yeah, because other people ran Dungeons and Dragons on a regular, so there just wasn't a slot available for me to run a game in. But Heroes Unlimited was my baby, so I got to introduce them to it. So yeah, that was what we did. Very cool.
And what about now? What about currently? You run games now or just play?
I like being the DM, and I like running short and fast and punchy campaigns which go all over the place. So I throw a lot of adventure leads and just let the players choose where they want to go, and then that ties back into the story that I want to tell. So it's like you're in a sandbox, but you've got a little baby leash attached to you. So every now and then I will move the sandbox under you and make it feel like you chose to be there all along. So it's like, well, this set piece thing just happens, even though you're miles away from where you're supposed to be. Case in point is running old adventures. Like I had a friend who said, I've never run any of the classic adventure modules. Could you run some of those for us? And I was like, okay. So I started off with Haunted Halls of Evening Star, and running a old school campaign with modern players. They needed a reason to kick the door down and go into the dungeon. Back in the day, I realized we didn't need a reason. If there was a dungeon there, we just go. It was just expected. There's a lot of development and personal investment in characters these days, which I think is a little bit absent in
It was more of a video game almost, in a way.
I was gonna say it was more a tactical rule game.
Yeah. Well, not even tactical, but I think like in a video game, what Mario doesn't need a reason to go right. You go right because that's the way you go, kind of a thing. And I think older D&D was kind of like that too. But you still had that connection to your wizard or your elf or whoever you were playing, because you went on that adventure with them. But with the rise of Critical Role and other things, and people being able to watch, when I was playing D&D before Critical Role and stuff, it was very much like we just kind of, I'll go over there, I'll do this, I'll do that, and then I met a bunch of people that played D&D because of Critical Role, and every game with them, they're very like, okay, I got to get my voice for this character, and but that's the enjoyment of the game for them, is they love coming up with these little things. And it's so interesting to me that we have two different ways of play. It's basically the same game, but like and so
that's what I was alluding to before. It's not wrong. It's just different. So there's nothing wrong with playing a theatrical game on a stage in front of an audience. That's highly enjoyable. I've gone to PAX and watched the guys play Call of Cthulhu, and I thoroughly enjoyed that as a theatrical experience, and the interactivity of it, and knowing that it's a game system I'm familiar with, so I know what's going on and what's sort of headed in their direction, and But that's different from sitting around a table and playing Call of Cthulhu with your friends, and neither one of them is the right way to play. They're both correct for whoever and however we're playing it. So yeah, a lot of the old arguments of the the stereotypical neckbeard going, "Whoa, you can't do that." Well, it's very diverse now, the hobby.
Yeah, I also love the old modules, and I keep picking up like 5e versions of them. And I'll run to my friends, and I do have a group of friends that get really excited about them. Like, oh yeah, are we going to die in this one? But then I have one player who I really wanted to run Tomb of Horrors for them, and they're just like, well, I'm not taking this guy because I don't want him to die. And like he's and he just like, he knows the rumors around it, and he's like, well, I'll go in with this other thing then. And I'm like, oh, well, then you can't keep the treasure if you find any in there. And he's just like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? Is the like serious problems here.
I just reran Lost Temple of Thera's Doom, which is a good one from Greyhawk, but comes into Forgotten Realm. Thera's Doom gets in Forgotten Realm somehow at some point too, I believe. And that was fun to look back at how a Gary Gygax adventure was built. And like you said, it's very different playing it with a modern audience now, because it's written in the way that they played the game then, and now your players are just totally different.
That's really cool. Oh, you can play D&D as separate realms and separate entities, so things that happen in Greyhawk don't correlate with other settings and things, and it's completely separate. That's fine. That's one way of playing it. Or something that I've done over the time with my lore videos is create a cohesive picture of the Spelljammer universe and the Planescape universe is all one cohesive thing, and trying to make sense of the cosmology that way. And it's proven to be popular, but it's just one way of looking at it all. So that's not the be all and end all. That's just my take on Dungeons and Dragons.
Do we get a Spelljammer book, AJ? What do you think?
We got 3 books coming. What's going to happen?
I think we already have the rudimentary stuff that you need to run a Spelljammer campaign.
Sure.
Like with what we have right now, you've got the tools at your fingertips, and we've got the GIF in one source book, and we've got GIF Yankee in another, and we've got this and that. So it's they're laying the breadcrumbs and seeing if we're really interested. But I think we haven't seen the hype for it yet. So once we start seeing the hype for it, it'll be on the cards. In the meantime, it's just the more we talk about it and create this mythical idea of it's coming. I feel like they're sitting in the corner going,
all right, you heard it here first. AJ confirms Spelljammer's coming 2021. Mr. AJ Pickett, thank you. Oh, go ahead. One more thing.
You haven't asked me the important question of is there going to be a 6th edition, and what will it be?
Is there going to be a 6th edition? What will it be, AJ Pickett?
I think if they start creating a Dominaria source book, that would be our setting for the 6th edition.
Interesting.
What is that? Dominaria?
Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering.
Okay. Bring the two IPs together.
Yep. No, and they want to do that because it bridges fan bases between their 2 most lucrative IPs. So
right.
That might not
at the moment they've got 2 separate lore departments, and imagine if it was just one.
Yeah. I'm excited for the I don't play Magic the Gathering, but I'm excited for the Forgotten Realms Magic the Gathering cards that are coming
I
this
think
summer.
6th edition is the edition they call the no edition, because they try to do that whole thing that a product does where they say we get rid of editions and now it's this. That one goes through, and then it'll be 7th edition where it goes back to, okay, we're going back to edition, because every product always goes back to an edition after they try the no edition thing. So I think 6th will be that one. That's my theory.
We're already talking about 7th edition.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Hey, they make products. They got to make that money.
We'll be in our retirement home. Well, 8th edition's coming. It's an implant. It's an implant that I put at the back of my life suspension.
A cartridge.
Legit though, I'm really excited for my retirement plan of living in a retirement community or something, because I'm going to be that 80-year-old that's playing D&D all day, every day with my friends. Yeah, it's going to be great.
9th edition is basically just our brains and tanks, and we're in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. You gotta get and then you don't roll dice. Everyone has different like brain cooling liquids, and they're like, "Oh, you got the sparkle one." You're like, "It's pretty cool." AJ, thank you so much for joining us. Really excited to have you here. This was fun. Go check out his Kickstarter. These silicone battle maps and stuff like that. They're really, really exciting.
I'm going to order mine right after this.
Do it 100%. Tweet about it. All those things. Check out AJ on YouTube if you haven't. And he's got a huge amount of videos, and they're all really fun and really interesting. And yeah, thank you. We will be back.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, 100%. We will be back next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Bye.